We could easily go on, but let's put a long list of horror stories aside and turn to what is now the consuming concern, and with good reason. The criminal Russian invasion of Ukraine, which in character, if not in scale, ranks alongside of other major war crimes, such as the US-British invasion of Iraq, the Hitler-Stalin invasion of Poland, and other grim episodes of modern history. The immediate task is to end the crimes that are devastating Ukraine. If it has any concern for the fate of Ukrainian victims, what the US must do is agree to participate in diplomatic efforts to end the attack and to put forth a constructive program to facilitate this outcome. And it must be pressured to do so. What a constructive program would be is common knowledge. Its primary element is neutrality for Ukraine. No membership in a hostile military alliance, no hosting of weapons aimed at Russia, no military maneuvers with hostile military forces. A status rather like Mexico, in fact, the entire Western Hemisphere. They cannot join a Chinese-run military alliance, cannot emplace Chinese weapons aimed at the United States on the US border, cannot carry out military maneuvers with China's People Liberation Army. In brief, a constructive program would be about the opposite of current official US policy, which was formalized in an important joint statement on the US-Ukraine strategic partnership signed by the White House on September 1st, 2021. This critically important document has been suppressed in the United States, I assume elsewhere. The document forcefully declared that Ukraine must be free to join NATO. In justification of this stance, Washington continues its posturing about the sanctity of sovereignty, posturing that is eliciting ridicule in civilized circles, particularly in the global South, which knows well from bitter experience that the United States is the world champion in contempt for sovereignty. Well, let's continue with the joint statement. I'll quote it. Here are the words. It finalized a strategic defense framework that creates a foundation for the enhancement of US-Ukraine strategic defense and security cooperation by providing Ukraine with advanced anti-tank and other weapons, along with a robust training and exercise program in keeping with Ukraine's status as a NATO enhanced opportunities partner. That's last September. This shocking document, which is not public, it is public, just not reported. This document extends Washington's contemptuous dismissal of Russians' concerns ever since Bill Clinton's 1998 violation of President George H.W. Bush's firm pledge not to extend NATO to the east. a decision that elicited strong warnings from high-level diplomats, from George Kennan, Henry Kissinger, Ambassador Jack Matlock, CIA Director William Burns, many others. It led Defense Secretary William Perry to come close to resigning in protest, joined by a long list of others with eyes open. And that's, of course, in addition to the aggressive actions by Clinton and his successors that struck directly at Russia's concerns: Serbia, Iraq, Libya, and lesser crimes, all conducted in such a way as to maximize the humiliation. Since there's been a good deal of dissembling and evasion about the Bush-Baker promise to Gorbachev, it's perhaps worthwhile to cite the exact wording in the authoritative National Security Archive, quoting from the original documents. Secretary of State James Baker agreed with Gorbachev's statement in response to the assurances that NATO expansion is unacceptable. Baker assured Gorbachev, quoting, "Neither the President nor I intend to extract any unilateral advantages from the processes that are taking place. The Americans understand that not only for the Soviet Union, but for other European countries as well, it is important to have guarantees that if the United States keeps its presence in Germany within the framework of NATO, not an inch of NATO's present military jurisdiction will spread in an eastern direction. No qualifications, no ambiguity, no hypotheses, straight and clear." Going back to the September 2021 joint statement, it was, of course, highly inflammatory. It may well have been a factor in inducing Putin to step up his annual mobilization of forces on the Ukrainian border in an effort to elicit some attention to Western security concerns, in this case, escalating it to direct criminal aggression. Well, one element of a constructive program is neutrality, actually offered by Zelensky, not backed by the United States. It's well known to all sides, as are others. Whether diplomatic efforts might succeed, we cannot know if they are not tried. So far, the United States, backed by its allies, refuses to try, while sacrificing Ukrainians to a grim fate. We can only speculate about motives, but it is important to recognize that Putin provided Washington with a marvelous gift. He drove Europe deep into Washington's pocket. That's been a leading issue in global affairs since World War II. Throughout the Cold War, Europe has had a choice. Should it agree to be subordinate to the United States within the NATO Atlanticist framework, or should it pursue the vision of a European common home from the Atlantic to the Urals, or even from Lisbon to Vladivostok, with no military alliances. Doing so, it would have become what's been called a third force, an independent actor in world affairs. That's the proposal that was made by Charles de Gaulle. It was implicit in Willy Brandt's Ostpolitik. It was made very explicit by Mikhail Gorbachev as the Soviet Union collapsed. The United States, of course, has been strongly opposed, often in highly instructive ways. I'll mention one very interesting case. 50 years ago, when the United States was preparing the military coup that overthrew parliamentary democracy in Chile and established the vicious Pinochet regime. The chief architect of the crime was Henry Kissinger, and he explained, in his words, that the virus of democratic social reform under Allende might spread contagion, reaching as far as Spain and Italy, which were then threatened by reformist left initiatives. Such considerations have been a guiding principle of US foreign policy, as for its predecessors in imperial carnage. In fact, back to Athens, its order with Melos were motivated by similar concerns, that independence for Melos might spread contagion to the other Greek islands, a major principle in world affairs. Well, for now, Putin has laid to rest any prospects for an independent Europe. That's an immeasurable gift to US imperial policy. It may be that Washington is quite satisfied with how the crimes in Ukraine are unfolding. Perhaps, as has been suggested from on high, recently by Hillary Clinton, perhaps there are prospects for supporting an Afghan-style insurgency that devastated Afghanistan while impeding Russian efforts to withdraw, as they were trying to do early on. That's demonstrated by released Russian archives. And it also contributed to the demise of the Soviet Union. Well, credit for having provoked Russia to invade Afghanistan has been taken publicly by Carter's national security advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski, noted strategic analyst. He explained that the fate of millions of Afghans hardly counts as compared with bringing down the global enemy, or perhaps the fate of millions of Ukrainians.